Speed, right. Well, for some of you, we've already looked at this a little bit in individual sessions, but if we're looking at when we're trying to get the boat up to sort of max speed for our ability, being able to get the rating up effectively is a large part of that. And to do this, we really want to make sure that we are sitting up so that as the frequency of strokes increases, any inclination would have to kind of really swing into bow. While it works relatively effectively at the lower and lower ratings, as we get faster and higher, the acceleration that we can create doesn't really carry over. And so it doesn't carry. We can't keep up the level of acceleration force if we try to get long and lay back through. Not only can we can't get through, but we can't get back into the stern away quick enough. So particularly when we're looking at ratings that are getting, to some extent even into the high 20s, but definitely once you start getting into 30s, if you've got what would be possibly accentuated layback, it's just really hard to get the rate up. And if you can't get the rate up, you can't take enough strokes to get the speed up. So you really want to start thinking about the things we've been talking about. But if we're looking at feeling the boat and trying to kind of get this system to go faster and faster, if I'm finding that I'm running into some obstacle, for whatever my mechanics are, I've reached my red line. I can go effectively no faster. Then I have to kind of look and see, is there something in my mechanics that I can change that will allow me to take just more strokes, right? So in terms of speaking of red line, so I mean with different types of combustion engines, you've got a long, big trucks and diesels, that have a low RPM, they have a lot of torque. There's long, big cylinders, and if you get to something like motorcycles and everything, they have short, big, wide cylinders, so they can do lots of repetitions and get a lot of cycles through. So we're looking at something similar with what we're doing here. So we have less layback, and then also making sure, as we've been talking about all the time, is getting the blade in at the catch so that we don't come up and have that little bit of hesitation. So catching sooner, even if we think we're catching, it feels like 3/4 slide. If we can get that crispness right in. I'm talking, especially when we're getting up into the 30s, we have to be fast. So we have to just direct right in, boom, to really make sure that we're getting those strokes through one at a time. So, any questions about that?
I sent you a video, speaking of that, of Ivanov.
Yeah.
Right? Like, master of...
Oh, beautiful, beautiful stuff. I didn't see the video. There's the one we used to show at Craftsbury of him, and basically it's a loop in relative slow-mo of him training. Just some very nice close-ups of him just, it's beautiful. And there's like the control, he's got...
And he doesn't linger, right?
No, he's just right in.
And
remember, you got to remember, he's rolling with big old clunking heavy wooden blades. None of this carbon fiber stuff is light, easy to change. So you need a little more, guerrilla oomph to really make sure that you can kind of move those suckers around. It's just more mass to them. So but good stuff. The thing that is interesting about him is he's not that big as scullers go. When he's going up against carpeting 6'7", he was only about 6'2". But very, very powerful, pound for pound, and very efficient. So good, in the quickness. We can see this also if you guys had ever had a chance to see either one of the Steckles throw when they were here in the past. If you typically, when you look at really effective or well-trained or brow-beaten high-level rowers, the quickness of the catch is critical. It's very difficult to get fast, or to be consistently fast if you don't have a fast catch. And so one of the things we've been looking at with all this stuff about the hands is we want to make sure that as we're being fast, we don't go in the process of just trying to get in there, we don't go a little too far and go too deep, because that's not really going to work for us. So we do have to have the stability, and once we have the stability, then we have to make sure that we're practicing that quick in. And in the single, you know, it can be a little challenging to practice it because it's tippy up there. But
so how do you achieve a fast catch?
You just do it.
No, you've mentioned to me to come up and then wait, a split second, wait, and then,
No, yes, you may have heard me say this, but you're misunderstanding what I'm talking about.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify.
There's this piece that we talked about with the pictorial, where as we're practicing the pictorial, what we can even start to kind of work on is this conceptualization that as I'm doing pictorial, after I get past arms only, I am endeavoring to let the handles come up a quarter position ahead of what I'm actually rowing. So with arms only, basically as soon as I come into the release, as my hands come away, they're already coming back up. And when I do arms only, if I don't, I'll get this sort of feeling of sort of here, this. So it won't be, especially if I want to do arms only at a high rate, I won't be able to do it. So, if you want to really practice it, you can say like, all right, so I'm gonna do. Usually can't do it on your, you might be able to do it with the phones that have the accelerometers, but you can't do it with the old NKs with a magnet. Saying like, all right, so what's the stroke rate? Can I get with arms only? Can I get up to like 50, maybe 60? So to do that, I've got to get up and right in. I can't, because just that little wasted time, I won't be able to do it. So it's like practicing quick hands away and also right to the water. So I can do that. And I mean, I can only do it usually for, I don't know, depending on my arm strength, maybe 20 or 30 strokes before I really start to feel like, ooh, my arms are burning a little bit. But it's a good practice of that. After I'm progressing further into the pictorial, it's the same idea though. I want this idea of hands coming up as I am moving into whatever that catch position is. So in sculling, the up is much less. In sweep, we're talking about this kind of almost like ski ramp oftentimes with more novice sweepers. It's a sense of like you're literally coming in, boom, it's here. We don't have that much lift. The blade's much smaller in sculling, but we still want that same in. And so assuming that we've got everything else and we're stable, then as we do this up and in, we're already vectoring out, bam, we're right in, then we can go. So we just have to practice it, and that's because this is a repetitive activity. Most of us get in, and we've already talked about how we delay the roll up, most of us get into this habit of roll up, and all this, and then as we're doing this, our butt is just sliding back down towards the bow. So we have to really kind of break out of that, and so there's lots of drills to practice that, and usually you practice the ones that don't make you feel comfortable. That's kind of where you're at, somewhere there. Yeah? Eyes closed, yeah, a little bit more. That's a little more, if you got feeling it, but things like once we get to pictorial, if we can feel it, definitely doing the legs only reverse pick. So like the first piece they just catch, boom, 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 and then just legs only. I mean, that's focusing specifically right on that, being able to get right in and quickly, especially the catch only, because if you get it and you don't have it, you're kind of like, not feeling. You should feel just boom, boom, just lock in and get. And so what you're getting with the patience, for you was making sure that you have engagement before you through. And so depending on the speed, that what you're construing is like the hesitation. If you're at a lower rating, yes. If you're rowing at 18, there's a sense of coming up there with matching the feel of the speed, getting in, and then really getting the suspension in. It's not so much like a waiting, a placing in and just stopping, but it's getting in and making sure that we are suspending, getting everything loaded so that the second half really sends through.
Feeling the load. Yeah,
and if I get that right, then hopefully my legs are working all the way through to the end of the stroke, as opposed to just bam! Oh, now I gotta, and I won't have the muscle strength through here to keep that up long term. I want to be able to use the mass of my body longer. Suspension. And I think we were talking about the seals. It's not suspension up. It's just bump it off the seat. Anybody can do that. It's like, yay, you get a cookie. That doesn't get you anything because we want to go this way. So what we're looking to do is suspend as much of the body weight off as we can and then move it this way as long as we can before gravity pops it back down. And that weight off the seat is then energy into the feet or into the pin. And that means power and speed. Assuming, we don't then hit the brakes when we get caught at the finish. But we're adding energy, we're adding value to the system. And that's where the patience comes. We have to give ourselves time to feel that. And so for you, yeah, that concept of like waiting, well, will help. But it's getting to that point of feeling it where it's like there's this load. And if we look on the ergs, this nice long curve, building of speed through. So yes, good. I'm glad we clarified that. Anything else? Okay, so let's just make sure, particularly when we're looking at sitting up, or places when, since many of us will be endeavoring to do some competitive racing here in the next couple of weeks, just make sure we're aware of this idea that when, particularly at the start, we talked about this maybe a month ago, when we're particularly coming up to the start, we want to make sure that we are sitting up. Okay? And it's a little more specific from that, particularly on the first stroke, when we're sitting up, we want to make sure that we are sitting in front of our sit bones. So if we're starting at wherever it is, half or three-quarter or wherever, we're going to sit in front of our sit bones, and this is going to allow us to do what more effectively?
Move faster.
Try again. Yes, but we want more specific.
Suspend. You get more pressure on the feet.
Okay, so keep talking this out. So connect to the boat, pressure on the feet. What is this all going to allow us to do?
Balance, stability, lateral connection.
And engage.
Oh, you guys are just throwing out all buzzwords. I was like, hit the target eventually. Yeah, shotgun effect. Yeah.
Keep the weight of your butt off the back of the boat.
No. Now you just that covers it. All right. So remember, if we're sitting at a starting position, probably our blades are square. And you probably have noticed if you try to sit at the start position or any kind of thing with your blade square for a long enough period of time, you notice that the boat just tends to be a little tippier than when the blades are flat. So I really have to kind of be here, and if I'm trying to balance, stabilize, not fall in the water, all good stuff, and then I'm, a little bit adrenaline going because I know this at some point somebody's going to say row, and I'm going to try to go from a standstill to hopefully my race speed as quickly as I can. So there's this impulse to move quickly. If I am not stable into my feet, or as I move, if I'm not already connected in there with even force, as I boom, there is a high probability that I am going to put more force into one side than the other. The stroke is very short and the boat is not moving, so there's no pressure of water against the hull, nothing setting this sucker up. So I'm trying to go from a dead standstill, hopefully up to a high rate in a fairly short period of time, and the clock's on, I got to do this quickly. If I'm not stable, there's a good chance that as I take that first stroke, I'm not going to get suspension, because I wasn't stable here, so I didn't really get connected to both sides, and if I don't get suspension, I'm going to have a very slim chance of getting those blades out. And so I'll get one of these, one of this, and the rest of the race, they don't care. The clock's going. So then it's like, freak out even more, go faster! It's a bad way to start a race. If we're stable, if we get that first stroke, it's like, big question mark, but if we get that first stroke and it's like, ooh, that was nice, I can relax, I can start to get in my rhythm, good stuff happens from there. So if I'm stable, and this applies to all bits of rowing, if I'm stable, then I have a better chance of this. And to be stable, if I'm sitting up, but particularly aware of being in front of my sit bones. Does everybody know what their sit bones are? Those little bony ends of the butt here when you're sitting on the seat for long periods of time that maybe start to ache a little bit or something around there. That's the tissue around the sit bones, okay? So we want to be in front of, on the tops of the thighs. As we do that, we will have more weight into the feet, and then we'll be able to have the feet hopefully flat, so that as soon as we move, we've got a nice full surface to push on. Okay? Good. And then we get through, and as we start to get through more, then we can put a little bit more body swing in, but still thinking about staying up so we can kind of keep moving. Faster, faster. Yes.
I think that's one of the most important pieces of good coaching advice on the start. Is I used to not have my feet stable, and if I just focus on my feet and this, I don't go this way.
Right.
You know, and before, you know, when it was not
It's random which way you go.
Pressure.
Yeah.
I would always go. Now I just stay and I go.
Right. You feel it
It's
much
like
more.
a miracle.
It's simple physics. Yes.
Well, it feels like
No,
a
it's
miracle.
The magic of physics. Yes. And all good scientists would approve this. All right. This is the same thing that you're feeling when you are coming up, when you're moving on the recovery, and you get these little things here and there.
Yeah.
Same thing has happened, except it's not quite as amplified because you're not.
Moving that.
Yeah. And they're like, so the boat's a little more stable, so you don't feel it as much. But it's the same mechanics. It's why we want to make sure we have range of motion in our pelvis, so we can actually get forward and sit up without having to do this, which gets it a little bit, but it's just not as mechanically efficient. So if we look at, hopefully, usually really good scullers and efficient mechanics, they've got, you know, good body posture. Now, of course, depending on sort of mass of body, you know, there are people like, I mean, a good example of this would be somebody like Olaf Tufta, Zeno Mueller. I mean, people who are guys that are kind of sort of barrel-shaped. They're forward, but there's all this muscle in the way, so they're kind of like, they look kind of like this sometimes when they come up because there's just stuff in the way. So, you know, this is going to be kind of dependent on what your body mass is. If you look like Sebastian, you should have no problem because, you know, long, lean, we want rowers, you know, so things like that. Is that right? But yeah, forward and then sitting up and going from there. Good? All right, so let's see some of that out here today. If you guys want to practice, you know, one cycle a start, just the, you know, the 5 sequences to kind of see how it goes. If you get it right, as you guys mentioned, it should just be like that was, yeah, feel like magic. It's like that was easy. It's like exactly.
I haven't done that.
We're looking for easy. Easy's nice. Plenty of other things in life are hard enough as it is. So we're looking to make this easy and efficient. Is that right?
One other question. I have another question. I have 2 extra rooms in Grand Rapids. If anybody needs them
Probably don't
before I
need something
cancel
to
them, let me know. Okay.